And it's like with range anxiety in cars. Most people overestimate how much range you need.
Yeah.
This thing has 30 kilometers, and in the city, nothing is more than 2 kilometers away. I've always liked the idea of having an inner city that's car-free.
Yeah,
I mean, wouldn't that be nice?
That's my previous work.
So how far can you go?
30 kilometers.
Oh, 30K. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I charge it maybe every 4th day.
And you haven't crashed yet, or?
I've bumped into things gently.
Did you wear a helmet?
No.
Did you fall? Did you ever fall?
I looked uncool. So, you try to stop gracefully, and it doesn't always work.
Cool. So, Robert, you had a summer, what do you call it? Electric
skateboard summer.
Skateboard summer.
Yes, it was good.
Cool. Jesper, did you do anything special this summer?
I think to continue on the cool devices, I was trying out my Meta glasses. They're not so new, but they've been around for some time. But it was quite nice on vacation to just do like click, and then you can record everything, and you don't have to bring up your phone. That was quite nice.
Is this version 2 of the glasses? Right?
I think it's version 2, and I think there's probably going to be a 3rd version this fall. It's rumored that they will have a little LED that you can watch. So you will have some kind of heads-on screen. So you will not just talk to them, but you will also get some feedback. That's the rumor, at least.
Really cool. Do people see that you are recording them, or?
There's a little light flashing when you're using it, but it's kind of subtle, so it is a little bit invasive.
It is, for sure. Cool. Henrik, did you do anything?
Well, I have a skateboard anecdote, but I also
you did skateboard, right? Before?
I've skateboarded a lot when I was a kid, and I've been for some time. I've been looking at electric skateboards for years, but never pulled the trigger on it. I've been looking for what is called more of a surf skateboard, like a
longboard.
A longboard, but it's the way it turns much more radical. And we were up in Åre, and we went to a loppis, yard sale, and I found an old one, but it's like, it has the right type of trucks that turns different. I buy this one. Then I had to try it out, of course, and they built a really nice skate park, concrete park in Åre. And here the 50-year-old man with a brain, I know how to kick a skateboard, I know how to do everything when I was young. I tried it out a little bit carefully first, it's okay, it's fun. Okay, now I need to get some speed, I need to kick hard in order to, then go and get some flow. What happens when a 50-year-old man that hasn't warmed up kicks super hard with the knowledge of how to kick hard? You tear your calf muscle.
Oh, really? I knew it was going to be something like that.
You fucking tear it straight off.
Some ligament goes off.
So it's like it's the calf, and it was a strange feeling where I sacked. I used fell as a sack of potatoes, and I couldn't bounce it. So I thought I took my heel, what do you call it, hälsena?
The Achilles tendon.
Achilles tendon. I thought I ripped that one, and I even had a plaster on for one day until I got to the general doctor. He put plaster on it straight away, and then I went to the expert, and then no, this is too high up. You haven't really pulled the Achilles heel. You have tear the muscle. And then it's a muscle tear, and there's nothing you can do but fucking rest.
Did you consult AI instead of a doctor?
I did everything. I consulted AI, I consulted 117 like this, and then I went, In the end, I've had an excuse to read books and to sunbake. So that was one thing, and that one thing led to another. I bought myself a new guitar. What? when I need to sit still.
What did you buy?
Oh, we'll take that later.
Nice.
But we had a fun summer, but it was not as planned. I was planning to do a top hike to Sylarna and stuff like that. My wife and oldest son did it, and I was at home, So a bit bad, but anyway.
Been cool. And besides, I had some nice time in Croatia with Goran as well. That was really, really awesome. But I also did a lot of agent mode coding during the summer. And
Lovable or what?
no. In Cursor.
In Cursor, okay.
But one other thing I did this Sunday, and literally in a few hours, was an AI After Work podcast planner. Ooh. And it worked surprisingly well. So it's an MCP server that goes out on LinkedIn and do some research, and then it just summarizes the person and a theme, and then it presents and generates a nice email reply with discussion questions, etc. So yeah, really cool. And
so how much time do you save with this?
A lot. I mean, I can basically do something that took 30 plus minutes to do it in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't want to put your own flavor on the questions.
But I can. It's interactive.
It's interactive.
So
right.
I can adapt the questions.
But then it's not 30 seconds, then it's 3 minutes.
Yes, it could be. If it's not a zero-shot version, then it takes a bit longer time. But in best case, 30 seconds.
But it's still, we've been doing 160 episodes, and you want to figure out, who is this person, what's their background, what is a theme that fits us and this person. Yeah. And that's work.
Yeah.
And it's fun to just try out the latest technique. Of course, I forced myself to use GPT-5, which I really just want to go back to Claude all the time, because I could very, very quickly see that GPT-5 is not as good as Claude. But I forced to use it.
It was also one way for you to really dig into GPT-5.
That was the reason. I just tried to find an excuse to force myself to use GPT-5. And this was it. And I still fall back to Claude after a while, because I was too annoyed.
Another thing that happened for me that is a little bit more data and AI related due to my injury, and my wife is if she hasn't killed me yet, I'm sitting here, but she will soon. I spend way too much time on LinkedIn commenting. And I saw Goran made a comment, I've been on detox for LinkedIn now. Fuck, I've been worse because of my injury. And I saw your comment, and that sort of leads to where we are here today as well.
Yes. Yeah, great to have some friends here tonight. We have this kind of improvised, extra special AI After Work podcast to just discuss and have some after work talking about the latest summer AI news, but perhaps specifically a bit more about GPT-5 and the controversy around that, etc. I think we all know each other here. Perhaps if you want to say 10 seconds or something about yourself. Robert, who are you?
AI developer. I work at SVT now, and I like operating system kernels.
Cool. Jesper.
AI engineer, currently at Volvo this week, and next week I'm starting a new job at Simply.ai.
Super cool. Yeah, congrats on that, Henrik.
Yeah, Henrik, co-host of AI After Work podcast, but for this topic, I think Robert does a better job than me in my spot. So I take your spot.
You're the guest. I'm the co-host.
You're the co-host. I'm the guest today. But ultimately, founder and CEO of Daredax, and we are obsessed with data and AI adoption. How to take data and AI from new to normal. That's what I'm all about.
I'm Anders, also co-host of the AI After Work podcast, an AI nerd and AI enthusiast. And besides the tech, I'm really passionate about how to really scale value from AI in companies in different ways. Okay, with that, let's jump right into the main question. So perhaps we can do a round of table kind of thoughts about the GPT launch itself, if that works. Anyone that want to start? Did you all watch it, by the way? Did anyone
Yes.
watch it live?
Yeah. What did you think about the presentations?
Let's start there.
Let's start with the presentation.
Robert.
For a company as big and as much momentum as OpenAI, I think we've seen a couple of tech companies not really seize the opportunity to be as polished as they could be. Where we see industry leaders like Apple and others that are just absolutely flawless in their presentation of stuff. There is the ability to do it, and we know how good it is for the company and for everything. And I don't know, they seem to think that they can do it themselves. And But it seems to become a new normal right now.
I have to say that I like it when it's a little bit like wonky. It doesn't work all the time. I tend to think that the Google presentations, for example, they're always overly polished, and it feels like all the jokes are rehearsed so well that you can spot the punchline before, like 3 minutes before.
And too much marketing, I think, in Google.
Too much marketing, yes. So I kind of like that it's a little bit like do it yourself.
There is a missed opportunity here, though, which is what is the purpose of GPT-5? And now we're leaving it to everybody to guess. Oh, GPT-5, some people will say, why did they regress all the old models in the drop-down menu? Yeah. Oh, it's because OpenAI's strategy here is to reach mass adoption. Or why did OpenAI do this and that? And without a sort of singular message on what they're doing and why, people are left to speculate. And maybe that's part of the strategy as well.
It's been more hype than any of the other model providers. The GPT line of models, it's always a big thing. Like everybody was super shocked when GPT-4 came out. And now they have to follow it up. But it's a hard thing to follow up.
And they built it up too much. I mean, Sam Altman speaking about the Death Star and everything. I mean, it's and then this came.
The image on X.
I will be the defender of GPT-5 here because what I think it's good for, I think it's very good for, and I think for everything that people are giving it bad rap about, it's fair. Yeah. I just don't think that it matters.
What is it good for?
I think
are we jumping there already?
Okay, we can wait for that. Okay.
If we're just going to wrap up on how was the launch, we've been sitting in this pod several times and talking about OpenAI as doing the smart marketing moves over and over again, and where we've seen debacles at the Gemini launches and stuff like that, and we almost turned the table this time. True. I mean, if you compare to how impactful GPT-4 was and how smart every single step out of it, even the timing, how they did it, that sort of set. I've been saying, good or bad, I don't care. I'm impressed with their marketing.
I have a take on that.
But not this time. Not this time.
Right. I have a take on why. Because I mean, they basically invented the whole scene. They were the first one to launch ChatGPT, which got everybody sort of aroused. And then they already had GPT-4 finished when they launched. They were just going through the basic, the validation parts.
Okay, so they had a head start.
They had a head start, so they could plan it more. They could plan it much more.
But it was nothing that really pushed them to do it at this time. And I must agree with Henrik here a bit that it's very strange. Compared to other like Gemini launches, they completely, like in a super smart strategic way, just launched like a day before or something, and then it completely overshadowed the whole Google launch.
So good, so marketing.
But in this case, not so much.
Well, not so much. You have a dynamic to play with here. The expectations and then what the launch actually does. I would argue that what they showed and what they launched and what they explained was quite okay. And the reason everybody thought it sucked was because Sam Altman and others hyped it up to the moon. And not only hyped, the things that I think it's good for, but basically other stuff that people, are interested in, such as can it count R's and that kind of stuff.
But why now?
Why now?
I think one of the key questions no one has really asked enough, or haven't seen it in the LinkedIn social media. Why now? Why did they rush it for this particular? What was the timing that they were going for? Because as Anders said, as we've pointed out, they've been spotless in timing in terms of fucking up someone else's launch or whatever. But this one, why?
I have one theory, which has nothing to do with the model selector and the routing. The thing that they obviously pushed the most in the presentation in the online event was coding, and they are falling behind Anthropic. And this is something they are advertising it, even whatever we think, that it's super good at coding. They have a new high score on Swebench. We can get back to that.
But it's on the same range?
It's on the same range, but at least they're at the same level. Before they were
they're catching up, but they're not taking the lead.
So what I think they're doing is they are marketing themselves as best in class in AI coding, and they're much lower in price than Anthropic. So that's why I think they felt maybe rushed to get into this field so that Anthropic doesn't take the whole cake.
But if then connect back to what you said before, that there is a theory that they had a head start, so in that way they could opportunistically do the right stuff, right? So this one, then, if I follow on with this one, where Anthropic has the perception of the coding lead, we see them for the first time not acting on their toes, but from their heels. They are not coming in, on your toes means I know. I'm just gonna smash it when the ball comes. And here, like, they're fighting and running around to even catch the ball.
There is one.
I sense that difference.
There is a what do you call it? Illuminati version of why they might have launched faster, and that is, they announced that they were going to provide GPT for all government in the United States. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes in terms of requirements and that kind of stuff for them to be able to secure that kind of thing. And if you think Palantir, for example, the only reason they exist, not the only reason, but the only reason is because they got the Department of Defense deal in the beginning, which was enormous. It's gargantuanly large, and nobody liked them as data scientists, but they were doing so good. This government deal might be worth a lot, and we don't know what requirements the government had. Could be something like that.
Could be. If you want to find a positive angle, which I love that you are trying to do now, and if I were to put a negative angle on it, I think the cutoff training date for GPT-5 is September 24.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That is insane. It's like the Llama 4 cutoff in August or something. It's a very, very long time back. I think they've been struggling like hell to get this to work properly. And they've been pushing it and pushing it and pushing it forward until they came to a point where we have to launch it.
Yeah. And probably GPT 4.5 was what they meant to be GPT-5, but it wasn't good enough.
No.
So that's probably why. And that's probably why it's that cutoff date, because they were using GPT 4.5.
Can we let that sink in again? Say those numbers again. How long have they been training?
So they collect training data, and they stopped collecting in September 24, and that's very long. It's almost a year ago.
That's almost a year ago.
And normally you can train a new model for a couple of months and you can release it. Now it's been a year, and I don't think it's. I simply think they've been struggling a lot to get this work properly.
And I also think it's hard to get. They probably felt that with GPT 4.5 that they reached sort of a place of diminishing returns with pre-training. So they didn't take the time to do another pre-training because it's very costly.
I think that is the simplest explanation.
But if we now money,
money is also a good explanation.
Money,
that's the same
the burn
thing.
rate is the same thing.
You remember that they were asking for a 40 billion investor round?
Yeah.
How do you crack an investor round without releasing something new?
Yeah, for sure.
And I think they waited, they got a lot of investments recently, and that was before the launch. So once they got the money, they could actually do the launch because they knew it would be underwhelming in some sense potentially.
It does make sense given what they presented recently to put the money into post-training. That's what they're saying is scaling better. So that's probably why they didn't pre-train again.
Yeah,
I'm biting my tongue here because I feel like what they've been putting their efforts on, once they realized that there were diminishing returns in pre-training the model, it was everything other than that. And that includes sort of automation. One of the things now is precisely that it's supposed to route a little bit more intelligently. Maybe it doesn't do it, but the point is all of that stuff, scaling to 400 million users and everything else is what they've been spending their time on.
Yeah, because now if we're going to find some structure here in terms of going around and picking this apart, I think one of the ways we need to understand GPT-5 and the launch is that we probably need to look at it from a couple of different lenses.
Yes.
And what I mean with that is, like, you can look at this from what do you need to do to kill it for the broad masses and to be the most simple to use that everybody reach for, if that's your main goal. What do you need to do in order to win the coder hearts? What do you need to do to win the researcher's heart? And maybe it's a point here also where we need to try to retract who are they building it for and what are they trying to achieve, and that really it's a fucking huge success.
I'll tell you in just a moment.
So this is one angle. I think we need to explore the launch and if it was successful or not from a couple of different user personas.
They might think that they have enough users that it can sustain a little bit of downtime, because either they can develop features for the users they already have, or they can develop the features that they believe the future is headed towards, and they want to shape the future in that way.
Yeah, so this whole, who are they developing it for? And therefore, if we benchmarking towards different personas, this is one angle. I think then, as your post, you need to do a hardcore benchmarking. You know, if you really look at the performance, is it good or bad, or what is it really? This is another angle we need to take. That was two angles, obvious ones. What else can we have as angles?
Okay, let's try to break it down a bit, and perhaps we can go through one of the topics one by one, simply by doing it. And let me, one of course is the launch, which was for some people, I think most people, underwhelming. I think media hyped it a bit, but I think in reality, more AI experts were expecting more, so to speak. I think at least it was more of a catch-up than actually a big revolution. It's more incremental update rather than a revolutionary update. And I think I was expecting a revolutionary update with a GPT-5 launch, right? And then, the metrics, which I think metrics should be one topic that we simply go through, right? Exactly. I think metrics is super interesting in various ways. For one, that it wasn't performing that well on some of them, but others like the LM Arena, it's actually performing very well. And why is that? And I have some theories about that.
This is the Windows Vista of LM updates, right?
It could be, yes.
Laying the foundation.
Yeah, exactly. The Vista moment. Good. But also new type of metrics that are coming up. And I think the whole metrics thing would be an awesome discussion topic.
That's a side topic. Which metric is really relevant?
Yeah. And but then also during the live demo itself, there were so many mistakes, and what do you call it? Like the short crime, and all the stupid mistakes that the short that it produced during the live demos was inaccurate. The bars was not matching the numbers, and also the text even had grammar issues. I could see, which the grammar of a model like this should be 100%, and it's very strange that it couldn't do that. And all these kind of things. It's interesting that they brought Cursor people along on the live bench, right?
Very interesting.
When they just had plans to acquire Windsurf.
Yeah,
right.
And Cursor. They wanted to buy Cursor at the start. That's at least according to the rumors. But they couldn't put up that much money.
Yeah. But one thing I heard when they had a Cursor person on, they actually attributed some of the functionality you could see when they did the demo with Cursor to GPT-5, but I could see it was really Cursor that had this kind of logic to do the kind of steps that they do. So they basically try to attribute the functionality and the reasoning to GPT-5 when it's really as Cursor and the scaffolding that it has around it. That was
And they had a Cursor co-founder testify that the GPT-5 was the best model he had tried.
Yeah. Well, was that paid for?
Anyway, okay, so we have a couple of different angles.
Yeah, and I think one of the main points for me, at least, is it wasn't any single novel invention that they published. I don't think you can mention anything. The dynamic kind of reasoning or deep thinking, that's been around in both Gemini and Claude for some time. That wasn't new. It's nothing new when it comes to how the reasoning works or the agentic features. That's been around for a long time as well. It wasn't really that they completely overshadowed anything else in terms of benchmarks.
There's one benchmark which it did very well in.
Yes.
The LM Arena, or?
No.
The meter.
It's on how long it can work as an
meter.
Yes, okay. That is
we all want to talk about that.
and there's proof for why that's significant from other directions as well.
Well, we have the topic of benchmark. I think that fits perfectly in that discussion topic.
All right. With that exception, then, I'll agree that it was nothing remarkable at all.
No.
And the only remarkable thing is a not remarkable thing, the routing between the different things hidden behind it.
But Gemini does the same. It's a dynamic kind of reasoning
absolutely.
behind it. And,
so it's not
Claude has this kind
really.
of mixed, reasoning and not reasoning. So it also does some kind of that, right?
I do have a comment on the novelties. If you look at it from a GPT timeline, maybe we talked about it previously. It's so they've been releasing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if they had skipped all the intermediate parts between 4 and 5, then I think we would be
Yes,
not underwhelmed.
that's true.
But we had already seen O3, and the jump from O3 to GPT-5 is very small.
That's a good point.
But if you take it in time, it's been 2 years since they launched GPT-4, but the time between 3 and 4 was almost 3 years.
Yeah.
So they've actually improved the model on the same level, but and it's been faster. But since they released all these intermediate models, it isn't perceived as something revolutionary.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I think also it can be motivated by, so many people have left OpenAI, Ilya Sutskever, of course, and Mira Murati, and so many other, the whole safety team. And I think they're simply out of talent to do the big innovations.
Oof, that's a big one.
That's
a big statement.
That's a big statement.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but it of course it will hurt them. I mean, like this,
Yeah,
the guys walking out of the door are some of the best.
I would say they still have talent, but it takes away, like in a company, if you lose 50% of your best people, it's still gonna hurt you because they're taking away all the projects that they were working with, all the knowledge. It will hurt them, of course.
But where do we start? If we're going to go for
so let me talk a couple of topics here and one to choose. Of course, metric is one. You mentioned another, Henrik, like who are they targeting? What's the target audience? We could speak about that. I think the finance and how the failure of GPT 4.5 because it was not financially sustainable at all could be interesting to speak about as well.
Maybe we mentioned what it tells about the future also, like what you said something about why.
We need to. What was the trajectory setting us up on here? I have an idea. Are we seeing some of the different models aiming slightly different trajectories? So that's a good one.
Is that 3 different topics or what do we have?
I'm sure,
No.
But let's start with the benchmarking because that's a broad topic with many rabbit holes. Let's start there.
I can make a quick intro and then we'll probably go into many rabbit holes here. But if we try to divide or categorize the different metrics we have, one could be for reasoning or this kind of abstract thinking, another can be for coding purposes, like say bench verified and whatnot, and then we have more like the kind of multimodality and being able to work with more than text in different ways, and many more. But one, if you take reasoning, there are many different benchmarks there. For some of them, actually, GPT-5 is in the lead. But if you take perhaps one of the most famous one, which is the ArcAGI2 from François Chollet, Grok 4 is heavily in the lead on, I think, 16.9% accuracy, and GPT-5 is 9% or something. So it's almost half of it. So it's significant underperforming. But some other, what was the name of them? I think that they have this kind of GPQA metric as well, but I think that actually GPT-5 was leading there.
Also all the AMI, what is it called? AIM.
Yeah, AIM, but that's 100%. I mean, it's a completely saturated number, right?
So they are pretty good, I would say, in reasoning.
I mean, they're catching up at least, because I think Grok also had 100% in that one, so it's not like... But one metric that they did actually significantly take the lead, I would say, is the chatbot arena or LM arena. So if you go there, it has like all the different metrics. It has 8 metrics or something. And the difference between this type of metric is it doesn't really measure in terms of accuracy of the question. It's more on which kind of response would you like as a user. So it's a blind test where people choose which reply you like the best. And there, GPT-5 is leading by far. And this is a theory of mine. I believe that GPT-5 is really, really good in EQ. Not IQ that much, but in EQ. Similar to GPT 4.5. 4.5 was actually mentioned that was really good in EQ, trying to understand what the human were thinking and express itself in a way that was really pleasing.
I find the output from GPT-5 and GPT OSS to just be really succinct.
Yeah,
very respectful and short and to the point.
Yes.
They're quite nice, the outputs. And one of the questions might be, obviously this is a post-training tuning where they might have put a lot of emphasis. And maybe they have, I believe they have not a new approach, but they have put a lot of effort into developing an approach to that tuning, which is not constrained by supervision and by other things that might have limited them before, which lends itself very well to a niche of types of applications, such as EQ and such as agentic stuff and that kind of thing. And I think some of these benchmarks are cool and interesting and worth investigating, such as ArcAGI. But I do feel that ArcAGI in particular and others are sort of modality constrained in the sense that they are very particular to a kind of modality which makes them unnecessarily difficult, perhaps. I mean, you have to imagine that this is a very specific kind of computer in the abstract sense of computer, and you're giving it a problem that it first has to translate and then compute on. But yeah. So reinforcement learning.
Yeah. I would argue that it's not so much EQ in the sense that people don't like the tone and the style of GPT-5. That's I tend to like it, but a lot of people remember this fallout with all the people wanting GPT-4o back, because it's much more emotional in how it gives responses. It's, if you will, sycophantic, and I think they were deliberately going against that because they had this extreme sycophantic mode this spring, I think.
Yeah, so GPT-4o had a moment where.
But a lot of people wanted GPT-4o back.
And perhaps you should explain what sycophantic means.
Yeah, so that means it's pleasing the user of the chatbot. It's saying that, that's a wonderful
So even if
question.
someone says, I want to kill my parents, and say, that sounds like a great idea. Here is how you do it.
Yeah, that's the worst version of it. But I know a lot of people who like it because it's saying, that's a fantastic
Stoking
idea.
your ego.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Stroking your ego.
It's
great for a narcissist, at least.
And this is almost in the opposite direction, isn't it? It's
definitely, yes. It's very much to the point, and I agree with you in that sense that it's much easier to like a response that is short and succinct.
Yeah.
But if you use it as a chatbot, maybe that's not what you want. But I think in LM Arena, I never liked a response that is too wordy.
Right.
So I think that's...
so this has been another thing that we talked about earlier on the pod before, that, and this is very much a personality thing, what we like, but there's been complaints in the past, especially from a coder perspective. GPT is used too verbose. I think this is his classic. Anthropic and those are sort of more to the point. Yeah, are we seeing a difference here? Are we with ChatGPT-5? Are we actually talking about it toning itself back to be less verbose, more succinct?
Definitely.
To me, it seems like somebody that's chatting with you through a phone and doesn't feel like writing the whole full sentence out. It's almost at that level, Must do it.
But I must say I like the language style. Even when I used it for coding and in Cursor, etc., I can see how it is thinking and replying and describing what it's doing, and I really like what I'm seeing.
Yes.
Then it doesn't solve the problem, but it sounds good. So I think they train it a lot for things like being good in terms of the language.
Yeah.
Call it that.
All right. So, and what are the key rabbit holes now in relation to benchmarks? We had a couple.
Should we do coding perhaps?
Yeah, coding is a good one.
Can I suggest we do one middle step, which is related to coding, which is thinking. I don't know if that's worth talking extra about, but it's the reason why I don't use GPT for many things. So I use Grok when writing poetry, because both Claude and GPT give up after a little try. So, with Grok, I'll say, I need these things to rhyme and I have these constraints for my problem. And if it can't figure it out, it'll think for like 5 minutes until it comes up with a solution. And that's not always good either, because sometimes they really run amok. But up until now, GPT and Claude have both given up really quickly, like, here's a good rhyme for you. And it's not good because it doesn't meet my requirements. Do you guys have any sort of feel for thinking and what you expect from the different models? Is GPT-5 better in that regard?
I don't know. I think it's good, but a lot of people are complaining that it takes too long time. I think it's spending a lot of compute on thinking. So that's I think it hampers it a bit, especially in Cursor and that. I mean, it takes time, as you know, to use in Cursor.
maybe this is an unfair comparison, and we'll talk maybe more about local models later. But the GPT OSS model
that's a good topic,
keeps it very short, whereas Quen will think forever and is like, am I sure about this? I'm not really sure about this, and it'll just keep going. Whereas the GPT OSS will use the short, typing with the phone language and keep it really short.
But I think we need to give some background about what GPT OSS really is as well. And I think also it's interesting that they released it just before this big launch. And I think that's at least one strategic thing that they did good. So GPT OSS is an open source version, and it's the first time they released anything open source since GPT-2, I believe. And it had this 120 billion and 20 billion version of it that allows you to even run it on consumer grade hardware, which is cool and works, really, really well, right?
I think it's, with the exception of how good it is at multiple languages, I've found it to be very, very good. And there's one thing, speaking of how good the launch was, that's a little suspicious. How good it is at benchmarks is just really suspiciously right between their flagship model and the model below it. It's almost like somebody said, stop. Now, this is as good as it's allowed to be before we release it, because it's that tight in between the two models. That's very suspicious.
Was this the second biggest news over the summer, the OSS launch? If GPT-5 was the main,
I feel like people really crapped on that launch as well, because Quen is doing really well with their own launches, and so it was.
No, okay. So if
we have, I think we have a number of other non-OpenAI news, but perhaps we can get back to that. But I think it's interesting that they did release it right before, and you can try to think about why did they release an open source version. And why they just released GPT-5 right after. And I think it was, the thinking is, and please disagree with me, but for one, by releasing the open source version, of course they want to please the enterprise business, and they've been falling behind, and Anthropic has really gained much more of the enterprise market than OpenAI has, and this allows them to do so. Secondly, since it is performing that well, why should you pay for Gemini or Anthropic if you have a free version in the open source version that they can do, and then have the GPT-5, which is above that? So it's a way to, like China is actually undercutting the Western services by releasing it open source, and then by simply letting them earn less money or gaining money, I think OpenAI had a similar strategy.
So are you saying that basically the OSS models are the marketing version, something to get through the door? Like, you can download this for free, and you can get a little bit better if you use GPT-5.
Yeah.
Well, makes sense.
But get through the door, or simply stop paying for the competitors. I think that's the majority of it. And also to gain much bigger market share of enterprise customers, which they have lost in the past.
I'm thinking that the open source models do not compete with the other API models, like the other closed source models. They are below them, even if in benchmarks they seem to be. But I don't think that people will choose an open model instead of a closed model based on benchmarks.
I think for applications they might, because it's more or less free.
It's not users that would choose the open source model. It'll be application developers that might build it into some service somewhere. And I really think that is, again, a super simple explanation for why is China or Chinese companies releasing so many open source models. It's precisely to undercut these services. And it's interesting to think that that's why OpenAI would do it as well, but it totally makes sense. And it, in combination with the sandwich between their best offering and the one below, it all sort of fits together.
Yes.
And open source, open weight, what is it exactly?
Open weight, I guess they had a system card at least for it. That was some semi-detailed at least.
I mean, the difference now between all these open models is what licenses they have and how permissive
I don't know.
Yeah, this one was quite permissive. It was an Apache, what's it called? The MIT license, I think.
Yeah, so it's
MIT's good.
I think it was Apache too, but I'm not sure.
There could be.
Yeah, but it's actually not. It's good. It's well done.
Yeah, it's available for commercial use and everything. Yeah. So, okay.
But wait, before are we going to move on from OSS or back to
continue.
GPT? Well, there was this really cool thread on Reddit of a guy that analyzed the output from GPT OSS. I don't know if it was the 20B model or the big one. But what was super cool is you could see a lot of the things that it thought about in general and maybe get some hints as to what it was trained on. And there are very strong signs that it was trained very much on sort of tortured to come up with its own Python problems that it then had to solve. So P versus NP type stuff, like make a domino problem or make a Rubik's Cube problem and then make a solver and then verify that you have solved it correctly. So when it was, just spitting tokens out, entertaining itself, that was what it would spend time on. And that's makes a lot of sense that for two things. One is that's a reinforcement learning loop that is sort of verifiable where, you don't have data, but you can make it. And then the second part is, if you're going to do that kind of stuff, you can't get lost. It's sort of conducive to the idea of having agents that are very, very autonomous, that don't get messed up after 2 hours or 2 days or whatever. And maybe then that aligns with their vision that the future is agents and not chatting.
Definitely.
And so what they're missing now is a science communicator in Ilya and others, right? Somebody that can explain it in a good way. We only have a bunch of nerds that like to do demos.
All right, so let's move back then to what rabbit holes did we have more?
Benchmarks.
Benchmarks.
We should probably
code.
finish that.
We were thinking about coding. Yeah.
So then I guess the biggest one is the SWE bench verified benchmark, especially SWE in software engineering. And then it has verifiable results, so you can actually see if it actually produced the right results or not. And I tried to actually look into the system card for GPT-5 about this, and what you can see is they have these kind of, in short, I think they claim that GPT-5 has 74.9 accuracy for that, and Opus 4.1 had 74.5 I believe, or something. It's
can
very,
you tell
very
how SWE bench is instrumented? Because does it need to be one shot, multiple shot? Is it allowed to work in agent mode? So what constraints are there?
This was pass at 1, right? I think.
Yes.
I think so. So you can have pass at 1 or 2, so you can have multiple attempts. But I think these numbers actually are how accurate they are in the first attempt. Pass at 1, right?
But they can use tools, and they can do anything they want, and it's verifiable. So it's a very good benchmark to work against in an agentic setting.
Yeah. So you can cheat on these kind of numbers a lot, and if you in some ways use tools, for example, and sometimes you don't. If sometimes you allow multiple attempts and sometimes you don't, then of course you get different numbers. So you have to be really careful and make sure that they have the same settings, so to speak. But my point a bit is it's very, very close to each other. This 0.4 difference is more or less inside the confidence interval that they do have, the standard deviation that they do have. So,
and
where is Claude Opus on this?
That's 74.5. So
and there's a small controversy around the numbers as well, because the SWE bench verified was. It was made by OpenAI as a verified version of SWE bench.
That's true.
And it's made up of, I don't remember exactly how many, but it goes into a subset that is 500 cases. And then OpenAI, after they created this, when they started evaluating their models against SWE bench verified, then they found out that 23 of the examples don't run on their hardware for some reason. It's not compatible with their settings. So they just excluded those cases, while Anthropic uses them. So in reality, they cheated a little bit on, probably. That is at least what I've been able to gather.
But doesn't this sort of align with our sense here that maybe Claude is better at one-shot and sort of few-shot code generation? And maybe GPT-5 has a strength in being able to follow instructions, because I don't use cursor. I use VS Code, and I only use it in agent mode. And I always give it instructions, like 10 instructions in a row, and ask it to double check its work and tell it exactly what to do. And then just let it sit there for 5 minutes. And when I come back, it's done a bunch of work. And for that, it's been quite good for me.
Yes, and that goes together well with the meter benchmark, which we're going to talk about later.
Okay, good. And I tried to do some experimentation myself with just GPT-5 for coding purposes in recent days after the launch. And I've even forced myself. I'm going to turn cursor. It has to use GPT-5 now. And I did that, and I was feeling just to give one anecdotal example. Of course, this is anecdotal and shouldn't be treated as any scientific kind of work. But I had this really difficult problem, and of course I couldn't solve it. I asked GPT-5 to solve it. It tried it again, and it went to this loop. And I saw it came back to the same loop. I interrupted it. I tried, no, you're getting into a loop. Fix this now. And it didn't fix it. And then I went to Gemini. It also continued. It couldn't fix the problem. It went into a loop, but at least it identified and said, oh, I seem to have gotten into a loop. I have to try a different approach. And it tried, but it didn't solve it. I tried with Grok. It didn't save it, fix it. And then I went to Claude, Sonnet in this case. And it fixed it in less than 1 minute. And just, the other one said, this is unfixable. It's a problem with some other package. You can't really do it. It was an MCP server kind of thing that I tried to fix. And but Claude just fixed it like that. Yeah. And then I continued to use it for just normal, not as difficult kind of problems. And my sentiment, more or less, when using GPT-5 in agent mode in Cursor is that it is not solving the problem. It looks really good when it describes what it's doing. I really like the descriptions there, but it doesn't solve the problem as quickly as Sonnet. So after a time, I just said, no, I'm going to stop using this now. I need to be able to code faster. So I just, turn it back into Sonnet mode, and then everything went so much faster. So my experience with using it in an anecdotal way in the last couple of days is that it is clearly worse than Claude.
Do we have any theories for why Anthropic seem to have so much better coding capabilities?
Better data sets.
Better data set, but how? I mean, considering Swebench verified, for example, OpenAI hired a lot of engineers, contractors, to finish this data set. So they have the money to spend, but somehow Anthropic is doing something right that the others
have the
aren't
talents.
doing.
The best talents from OpenAI went to Anthropic. The best people from Google went to Anthropic.
And they also have very good retention of their people.
Yes.
Very few people quit.
And because they really, want to be the one that do AI in a safe way, right? And OpenAI does not, because they fired their whole safety team, more or less, right? I think that's why they're losing some of the talents.
Yeah, I think they have a good company culture. I think that's probably part of the reason. But there must be some technical advancement that they've unlocked. I'm thinking, or it could be that they somehow got hold of much better quality coding data. Yeah. But I mean, OpenAI should be able to do that as well. So there's something.
I think
happening.
It's a talent thing.
But I think this is compound effects. This is network effects. So I think this is all the whole go back to what is research, what is the hardcore, how much work is the actual model, and how much is all the scaffolding, the smart things, the engineering tinkering you have done, that ultimately the sum of its parts makes something really great. So my argument is that it's really hard to point at one thing. It's a consistent good work across different parts of the compound system, so to speak. This is how I interpret it. That I think in the end we will see that it's not going to boil down to one model. It's going to boil down to many different things and how they coherently work together. And all of a sudden now you get to, wow, the experience is way better.
There's something around that. Part of my theory is that they have Claude Code, obviously from Anthropic, which is many people tend to like that coding tool.
I was just going to ask you guys if you guys have been using Claude Code yourselves. Yes. I love having the terminal finally.
Yeah. Yes, it's super good, and it's extensible in a way that Cursor, for example, isn't. So it's a really good tool, and they are using it all the time within Anthropic as well. So there could be something around a network effect there, that they're actually using their tools themselves, the dogfolding.
Maybe. And they also have a lot of enterprise customers. I'm not saying that they share the data from the enterprise customers, but I'm saying that they will get issues and reports from the enterprise customers for larger code bases and more difficult issues than just doing this kind of, I hate when someone says, this model is better because I can do a zero-shot game by just giving a prompt. No one would really build an application like that. Yeah. It's a horrible benchmark to say I can zero-shot an application.
Yeah.
And it's anecdotal.
It
Have
is
you guys
right.
heard anybody using Grok for coding? You know, they're showing off much how good Grok is at coding, and I don't doubt it, especially for those zero-shot things. But who uses Grok for coding for real?
Not so many people. I think it's. Do they even? Is it allowed in cursor?
I guess via the API.
Yeah, you can, but then you have to
You
build
can use
your
the
own.
cursor, yes.
Oh, you can use that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but they have amazing zero-shot abilities there in Grok 4. So I think they can, but Grok 4 is also expensive. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the meter? Are we done here?
Yeah, okay, so done with coding.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think if we try to just summarize this in a good way, one is we have the traditional metrics, and all the benchmarks are there. When it measures like accuracy, seem to quickly get saturated, and it's you have to quickly develop new metrics all the time. But I think there is a movement to new type of metrics, which Metri, of course, is one of them, which I think is really cool. Even Sam Altman, I hated his comment saying in launch that we are post eval and evals is not really useful anymore. But what's the alternative? I mean, if you just want to have anecdotal evidence, that would be horrible. I think the better answer is, of course, try to switch to a new set of benchmarks and evals. And we have some, right?
Yeah.
So what is meter?
Yes.
So meter is. I think part of it comes from Swebench actually. So it's a curated data set that the meter organization METR collected, and then they hired contractors, experts in their field. It's coding tasks and it's machine learning tasks, and then there's also a whole bunch of simpler tasks that are more in the GPT-2 and 3 class models, just to be able to plot things over time. And the cool thing they did is that for each task, they looked at how much time did it take for an expert in the field to complete the task.
Exactly.
And then they can just align it, they can just sort it by how much time it takes. And then you get sort of a curve of how many, if you put a model to execute on all these tasks, where does it break off? How many
So
hours?
in short, it's basically if you try to categorize tasks in how long time it would take for a human to solve them,
and a
you
human
can see
expert.
and then you can try to see how advanced tasks can AI solve. And before, like a year ago, it was in seconds or minutes. And now GPT-5 is up to, what was it?
I think it's 2 hours and 17 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's quickly getting capable to handle much more complicated tasks, at least for humans.
And the interesting thing is when you look at the benchmark, how it has evolved since GPT-2 over time, it's been doubling every 7 months, but it's also increasing. So it's accelerating. So since the 01 model, there's a new trend line which points towards that it's doubling every 4 months.
And anecdotally then, I picked up on this type of benchmarking, and actually the first time was from Sam Altman, who basically used this rhetoric on stage. How do we understand, to give normal people a feeling for what is the productivity frontier we're talking about. So he said, like, we started with being able to give them a task and let the AI solve tasks that is the attention span of seconds, then minutes, then hours. And then you have this doubling metric of 7 months. And then you get to a point where if you think carefully about it in normal enterprise context, when you're at tasks that requires 1 month man hours, is quite substantial to sort of use delegate.
Yeah.
To delegate 1 month man hour is substantial in an enterprise setting. So there's another reason I really like this type of evals, because all the other bullshit that we've been talking about here, no one outside the hardcore AI community can relate to it. This is quite relatable.
Yes.
I use this on stage, and people. And my rationales don't organize for where we are now. Organize for the trajectory. How does organization? How do you understand work? How do you understand management when you're delegating man years?
And I
That's
hope
an interesting. So I find it very. That's why I also very much like the meter. And they had a beautiful. They did an article on this a couple of months back that they explained all this. I don't know.
The meter organization.
Yeah, the meter
Yes.
organization.
I think it was this spring.
This spring, yeah. But it's good.
But I hope that it also moves along from just being like knowledge management kind of tasks. I think it still is in Matter as well.
What kind of tasks would you like?
So I would like, for one, to measure more of the reasoning capabilities, but secondly, also the agentic abilities. So when it means it actually has to take actions to solve the thing, and that is included in the time that it measures.
I'm not following. So I mean, now it's doing coding and machine learning tasks.
Yeah.
What kind of other tasks?
No, when you want to actuate.
I want to actually book a trip to Paris.
Yeah.
Then I need to take actions, right? It doesn't include any task like that, to my knowledge. So it only reasons with things that you can have available in a digital sense and have in, so you can reason it in a knowledge sense, right? So if it actually has to take actions and call someone or book a trip or do things that is interactive, like playing a game would be another thing. Like if it takes something to like, how do you finish a level in Candy Crush, right? That could be.
I see where you're going. You're thinking about like an employee that would have to do something.
Yes,
you're
exactly.
basically talking about
the AGI thing. Yeah.
But and another way. Okay, this is one way of spinning it. I would spin it in another way. We want the eval community to find benchmarks that are more and more real life. Real productivity, real life.
Exactly. So,
and if you're going to go down that route, you end up in actuation.
But not like real life. Like a human can stand on one foot and do this. Can an AI do it? But real life, like this is important to this person
and to the business.
And to the business.
To the business. Important. So you're getting to a point where we are. You know, Chris Claytonson, talks about jobs to be done. We don't employ products for the product's sake. We employ products because we want them to simplify jobs to be done. So if I go down that rhetoric, this is understanding product, this is understanding marketing and all this. What's the job to be done? That's what we're really trying to solve here. And then you get to a point where we want to measure productivity frontier on jobs to be done. Whatever they are.
And I think that's more general sense. If you take the AGI pyramid that OpenAI has, and the definition of AGI, which Sam Altman used, which is basically when you can replace an average level coworker, that is when you have AGI. Not ASI, but AGI. And you can't really do it unless you can take action at all. Right?
Okay, then I was right last year. We've already reached AGI because, not an average coworker, but I made an MCP server now that I called the AI data scientist. Yeah. And sort of along the normal distribution of skills, at the bottom half, you have people that can do some aggregate statistics and stuff like that. Those are data scientists. They're just not the most skilled ones. Those ones we can replace. So
I don't think so, but okay, continue.
Well, look, at my workplace, people don't know how to use Power Pivot in Excel. And so now they can ask, here, can you take my Excel file and tell me a little bit of group statistic, like aggregates and some other basic stuff.
That's knowledge questions, but okay.
Well, it's how to use pandas and stuff like that, or Power Pivot and things like that.
Still knowledge questions. They have to actually do it as well.
No, right. No, you're right. I wasn't using that as an example for agentic stuff. Just that something that's good enough can potentially replace or perhaps give skills that weren't there to begin with. And I want to hear a little bit about this good enough thing because, for coding, we don't expect them to code perfectly, and yet they've increased my productivity. We would never say that they're good enough coders. No. And so I think this...
So you couldn't replace even an average coder, or even a junior coder today, I would say.
But the fact that I can in one day do something that would have taken me 5 days in the past is a replacement of 4 Roberts.
So it's still an assistant in that sense, right?
Yeah, but sure.
It's improve your productivity by being an assistant.
Yeah, but this is his pet peeve, and I've been ranting on this on LinkedIn and stuff like that. The whole replacement rhetoric is really, really, really dangerous because it not to us. But to someone who's a CEO who doesn't really understand this,
they misunderstand it all the time.
They fucking misunderstand it, and they think, we're going to use the old process and we're going to replace Robert and put an AI in there. No fucking way. You're going to augment the engineering experience. That's what you're going to do, which is a completely different
because AI is horrible in taking actions. It still is.
I'm not thinking along the same lines as you do when you talk about taking actions. I think of, like, let's take an example. I think the hardest task in the meter set is basically implementing some sort of back-end payment system. If you can do that, then I think you have to do actions. You have to.
I think in coding it's gone much further.
Yes.
So it can actually write code and test it and run tests. So it can take a lot of actions in coding. So in coding, I think it's reached much further in terms of agentic abilities.
Yes.
But if you take other tasks, I would say not at all.
Definitely. I totally agree with that. But I also have a hot take on this replacing junior developers, and we've talked a little bit about that before.
Yeah.
I think we're at least close to that point, and that's from my experience with working with Claude Code and using extra frameworks on top of that, where you can have multi-agent systems. So you can specify, I want to have these type of resources on this project, and you can just have multiple agents work on the same problem. Yeah. And then I feel like this is close to the point where it replaces not just one coder, but actually like a team of coders.
Let me add one extra angle on this, on the replacement thing, because there was this really great comment by John Carmack on X, where he was saying that when he started, game programmers needed to know so much stuff about low-level sort of performance of computers and stuff like that, and he had to do lots of assembly and other stuff to really make things go super fast. Now with Unreal Engine and all these stuff, the game developers can focus on what's important. Are there still people that can do that low-level stuff? Yeah, somewhere. And so maybe the definition of what a game developer has changed since then, from junior to senior, and maybe coder, because people are asking me, will you need to know how to code in the future? And it's hard to say, because not many people know. I think
it's clearly yes.
I think so. I mean, not many people know how to program processor microcode. You don't have to know that anymore.
Machine code.
There's some other kind of programming that you do now.
I can feel myself when I do coding now in agent mode. Of course, I go up the abstraction level.
Yeah. It's just an abstraction lift.
But I still need to understand what is TypeScript or what kind of functionality you want to bring there, and I need to be able to review what the AI is doing.
But let me put out a bold thesis here, how to look at this that is much more useful. If we always take the role, this is the old school traditional division of labor view of understanding organization. If we take the role as the minimum quanta, then we fuck it up. If you define the team is always the minimum quanta of change, then you get to a point that, okay, before we had 15 guys in the team, we had to balance the team with some senior guys, some quality assurance and testing guys, and some juniors. If we still understand we are augmenting and re-engineering engineering work or whatever work, but we stop at the team as the smallest quanta, then of course we can get a team of 3 humans and 50 agents to have a productivity of a team of 50.
Agreed.
But if you rhetorically and semantically in everything you do, you never fucking go below the team as the lowest quant of change, then you're much safer. You're not fucking it up. Do you see what I mean, right? Mm-hmm. So the whole you're not replacing. You're picking up the productivity frontier of the team. You're not replacing anyone. No. If you stop on the team as the lowest quant of change, then you will not fuck up.
But then this is like the duality of the same kind of duality that we got from like the assembly line. Did everybody become richer or did cars become cheaper? If we flip it the way you're describing it here, it's not are we replacing people, but have expectations gone up from what we expect a team of 3 people to be able to do now?
Yes. And it might seem as the same thing, but from an organizational engineering point of view, from an operating model point of view, is vastly different.
I think it aligns exactly what I told in Data Innovation Summit, where people are expected to be more and more of generalists. In extreme, you have a single person unicorn company, with a single person operating a full company that previously took like hundreds of people or thousands of people to operate. Now a single person can do in the extreme. I think you can start to think about that for business processes or for teams doing coding, that a few people now can operate much more tasks that previously required a lot of specialized people. Now we don't need a specialized people as much anymore, and you have more generalized people, humans. using a lot of AI to do the more specialized work.
Yes.
I think that's the clear trend here.
All right. So let me now connect it back to the launch of GPT-5. So what if OpenAI and Sam Altman and whatever they are doing, they are not subscribing to the old replacing role rhetoric, but how can I maximize the productivity of a team? And ultimately then, we are working on things not only about the performance of the model, but what makes it more agentic, what makes it more safe, what makes it more of a co-worker in a team. And even Sam himself, he's been almost pushing back on the, you can't rely on us, you need to have the team there, right? But we can amplify the team. He said it in several, a little bit like, it's dangerous now and we can do so much now, but we shouldn't. It's a co-worker in the team. So if you then you get another lens. What are they trying to achieve with GPT-5? What's the trajectory they're on? And then maybe they are taking quite big steps that we are not really thinking about because we are measuring against the fucking role when it's a bad metric from the start.
Can I add my 2 cents on this?
I think this is there is a news that just came about. Perplexity wants to buy Google Chrome, right? Obviously, it's a marketing stunt because they don't have the money, right? They are valued. They are valued half of the price that they offer for Google Chrome. And the value is probably 3 times the value that they offer to buy it for. So they don't have the money. Keep in mind that Bezos is actually their founder and NVIDIA is founder of Perplexity. So my sense on the launch is the following. So if you look at from 3 points, the first is investor point. We are all investors here, a little bit or etc. Let's say that you have a company that is asking for 30 billion for investment. The first question for us as investors, like, what is your revenue? And you have some revenue, which they have. They have approximately, 3 billion in revenue per year? So the next question is, all right, so if we give you money, how are you going to make more money? Because you cannot quadruple the number of users because the users basically do not exist, right? They exist, but you have competition, you have Google, you have Perplexity, you have XAI, right? So then you need to find an alternative way of revenue. What is that? Can you guess one?
Raising the price.
Ads. Right. So if we are taking now if you're looking at what Perplexity and XAI is doing, they're fighting of who is going to bring now the news in the morning. Perplexity already started with ads. They want to buy Chrome, which is basically has like over 3 billion users. There is a very big push on in the United Senate to get Google to be divided in different places, right, in different companies, which means that Google Chrome will have to be, the ad business will have to be separated, etc. So I believe there is a bigger game that doesn't have anything to do with the technical part. It's about who is going to tap into the 137 billion revenue that Google is generating per year, right? XAI wants to sue now Apple, because Apple doesn't want to put it on an app of the day, because Elon Musk says that XAI is the number one, what is called like a news agent today, right? How do they back everything in XAI? Twitter or X ads. So the ads is a business. Now, we are the investors, so like, so you're gonna increase the business with ads, right? Okay, good. So how are we gonna do that? Well, it's easy, basically. We don't want to scrutinize the model, but we're going to introduce agent. This agent is going to buy stuff, right? How do you buy stuff? By ads, right? You go to the agent that is doing all of this other stuff. And now the ultimate thing is like, okay, so if you have, how are you going to do this when you have multiple agents in action? You have 4.0.
Go ahead. Let me clarify. Is this? Do you think that this is the idea that OpenAI has, or the direction that the market is heading?
I think that the market is heading, and OpenAI needed to make a move. So the 5.0 and no other model, because keep in mind, if you have other models that are not, you have the router. The first time appears on 5.0. Why is that? What also works on routers? Ads, right? You know of the things there.
I thought it was to save money.
Yeah, this is save money. So you have the money, but you have also so my prediction is that actually everything is done for the ad business, for them to come into more revenue, slim down operations, cost and everything else, because you have investment quite a lot. So for me, it's a little bit bigger than that. And keep in mind, 85% of all the users of ChatGPT are non-technical. They don't care about which model there is if it works.
But maybe if I follow you, what I've heard a similar reasoning. Is it the same? I'm checking. Before the ad business was at the tapping of the person searching, and now we're not going to search per se. So the ads has no use for us. The ad layer of finding the trip, finding the pizza is happening in the MCP layer, or is happening in the agent layer. So all of a sudden, how do we build an advertising or find us infrastructure for agents? Is that what you're talking about?
This is something they should be thinking about at the very least. I know for myself now, that's how I shop. I ask an agent to write a beautiful dissertation on the best hiking shoes or whatever. I was going to buy a book recently and wanted to find one in another language. It does that. I don't go and click through and read reviews and stuff. I don't have time to read 300 reviews. This is probably some kind of equivalent to the mobile phone revolution, where banks were like, okay, all our users want to interface with us through the phone, and they're going to want to interface with us through their LLM in the future. But it's not clear that there is a fixed sort of this is where the future is headed. It's up to OpenAI and Anthropic and all those to shape it.
But there is a trajectory here that the business of being found will happen in an agent layer more and more. Can we agree upon that? Yeah. And with that, you can then go down other rabbit holes that internet is not built for that. So we are now need to thinking about the core fundamentals of our protocols.
The only thing talking against your thesis here is Google, that says that their click-through rate has absolutely not gone down since all this started happening.
That's interesting. Do you believe that?
No. Fuck no.
Yeah.
All right. So what you're trying to get here, there's a macro, there's a meta play here that we might not understand and see.
Okay, so we have two Illuminati theories here.
Yeah.
The opposite ones.
Mm-hmm.
No, but that OpenAI is also prepping or maneuvering for this. What do we think?
Definitely agents. I mean, we can all agree on that. This is part of the GPT thing, that it's what they have done is to optimize the model for function calling or tool use.
Yes, tool use.
So that's definitely part of the plan, I think.
Yeah, one thing I think is sure is that if we go to the shopping behavior and buying behavior, that will change a lot in the coming years. Going from doing Google searches in general sense to just do knowledge management, I would argue. Do the research, figure out what to buy. You go to actually let it buy, if we call it that. So you're not going to actually just let it do the research. You're actually going to do the action of buying something in a more agentic future. So if you think that, and then thinking the Perplexity, placing a bid on Google Chrome, I must say, I think also, I agree the antitrust case against Google is something that could force them to do this. I don't think Google would ever want to, but they may be forced to, so that may be a reason why they are going potentially to succeed. But still, it will be the big agent providers that will win here, I would argue. I think potentially that they want Google Chrome to get the data simply.
Oh yeah,
right.
That is for the usage. They said that.
I think that's the major thing. I mean, otherwise you could just use Chromium, which is open source. But if they just use Chromium, they don't get the data. But they do get the data to Perplexity. They can train their own agents in Perplexity to do this properly. I think that's the main reason to do this kind of acquisition.
Yeah. I think for the people listening here, do you all use Perplexity and like it?
I do.
I like it.
I use it quite a bit. It's my main number one.
What is the use case of Perplexity versus research mode in your favorite agent?
It's getting tight there, but Perplexity was much better in research before. So if I would to do a research right now, I would go to Perplexity. I would not touch anything else.
No. Really? If you would do research, you would go to Perplexity before
Yeah, growth
for something, to figure out, what something is, a product is, a company is, a person is. It's actually surprisingly good.
I have a really fun anecdote how I use Perplexity. We've been fighting with the Värmdö kommun that they need to build a sound wall. And what happened was I realized, I have an angle why they need to do it, because they did a restructuring of the road where we live. They changed the situation, and they were referring back to no, we don't need to do another test or evaluation of the noise levels because we've already done that. But they did that before they changed the road situation. I realized that, but I didn't have any data. So I typed into Perplexity what was the changes on Skärgårdsvägen when they built this and this and this, and what are the decisions and that, and it could sort of then, from the American, So for me, when I say research, I don't mean proper research. I mean sort of finding stuff and
market research,
figuring market research stuff out. Yeah. Wow, it succinctly took what I asked for. I got it from all the public files.
And I think they know that in Perplexity.
They've done
really
it for a while.
They're really good at that,
and they've done it for a while.
And what's the next proper step for that? Anyone that wants to buy something, obviously they want to have the best provider that can do the proper research to know what to buy. If they just can put it into action as well, having the more agentic mode, that would be amazing. But for that, they need some data.
But I don't know if Perplexity is better. I used to like it. Mm-hmm. I haven't benchmarked it. I used to like it the way it does it.
I think it used to be incredibly useful, but as you're saying, I think
they caught up.
Reasoning models are catching up with that.
This is just a silly anecdote, but maybe the audience thinks it's fun. As a demo, I made an MCP server for booking train tickets, and I gave it I demoed it to a company whose job it is to make mobile phone applications, and they happen to have SJ and a couple of other customers, and they made exactly that app. It is really hard to make an application that the user doesn't find confusing. And for the user to give some plain text info, and then the LLM uses MCP, which is self-error correcting and a whole bunch of stuff in the background, is pretty slick. It's quite clear that that's the future.
Yeah, it's going to go that way.
If we may just finish an old topic, we went into a rabbit hole here of Perplexity, but just to close off the topic of metrics, etc. And what we were speaking a bit about, we have a couple of different types of metrics. One is purely the accuracy in being able to complete a task in some way. The other is more of competition kind of metric. I mean, I think LM Arena is that. It will never saturate. It will always just say, compared to these two models, which one do you think is best? And you can always have a winner there. It will never saturate. And then we have the more meta kind of metrics, which is more given tasks that take X amount of time for a human, how much can AI solve to 50%, I think is the definition there, right? So when an AI can solve a task that take X amount of hours, that means at 50% success rate, that means that is where AI is. And that can never also saturate as long as you can find longer tasks and more complicated tasks to do. I think still they can improve it in terms of agentic abilities, and I think today Meta is very limited to knowledge.
You can evolve. You can, with the same logic, evolve the more test cases easily.
Yeah, I think so.
The terminology here, I feel, is slightly ambiguous because in my team we just switched to a new user interface, and this user interface for sort of providing AI stuff to our organization, and in this interface it has the word agents. And an agent is basically a prompt, like do it in this way. And what you do then is you link one prompt to the next prompt to the next prompt. And so it can do sort of a sequence, but importantly, a serial sequence of tasks. Yes. And that's not really what an agent is. An agent, in my opinion, should plan how and in what order, and there need to be dependencies, and there's a graph and that kind of stuff. And so the question is it gonna, I think maybe that's hard to explain to people, and that's why the simpler version of agents is coming up. But I guess that ties in a little bit to this meter thing where you said that it could either be longer or more complex, right? So like deeper or wider also.
Yeah, true.
But this is a big problem that we have so many meanings of one word here.
But I think we can evolve to different type of metrics that doesn't saturate, and I think is really interesting. And of course, we have the whole synthetic data kind of issue where we can simply, like actually the absolute zero paper from a Chinese university did, which I think is amazing. It actually trained itself to both answer questions but also to generate questions, and then it had this kind of GAN kind of style where it actually competed against itself to generate more and more complicated questions, and at the same time try to answer more and more complicated questions, and it didn't need to have any kind of human involved to just improve in its reasoning and accuracy.
It was without pre-training, right?
Yes, it was pre-training for the language model. It's just the post-training that was done without any human data. So the absolute zero is in terms of no human data for the post-training.
I don't want to sort of lure you into a discussion that I know you would easily be lured into. But the question is, if we think about post RLHF era, with people coming up with, we can keep this progression going by doing reinforcement learning with these cool tricks. And then we have sort of another camp that is like, no, we need to do multimodal stuff or something like that. And, I've always thought of language as a sort of a bootstrap. And then we just need to be more clever after we've bootstrapped it to make it super smart. But, we can at least get it close to human with just language, maybe. So, right. JEPA. Yes. Everything, all roads lead to JEPA.
when you were with Anders, yes.
Yeah. Well, no. Okay, but can we just try to close the metrics topic, and then we can add this as I think because I think there are a number of different types of metrics. So one of course is the accuracy one. Another is the competition, and then saying that we can have also like playing chess. I mean, there was an interesting thing in just recent week where they actually put GPT-5 against Grok 4 for playing chess.
That's fun.
And that was in the new, I'm not sure if it's, I know it was Demis Hassabis who spoke about this, and it was launched, I think, in iClear in 2025 now, this game arena benchmark. So it's a new way where AI plays against itself or other agents. And in that way, trying to see who is the most intelligent one. And that's also a metric that will never saturate, right? No.
What happened, by the way? I forgot the GPT-5
GPT-5 won against Grok 4, yes.
I just remember, as I said before this talk, that Magnus Carlsen was watching the game and was laughing out loud when Grok 4 gave away a queen.
Yeah. But of course, if you do a proper AI-based system like Stockfix or something, no human would ever have a chance. But now for these kind of generalized AI models, our foundational models, of course, they play chess very poorly. And I think that's interesting.
Yeah, we're going so off the rails here. Back to we have with the
there is a red thread here somewhere.
Where is it?
Benchmarks. No, the benchmarks that are enjoyable. We're talking about meter here, and it's related to agents following instructions over time, sort of where we think that everything is headed. And it's hard to say what's driving that change, but the type of training required to get really good at those benchmarks is a post RLHF type training. Yes. So we have been building chatbots up until now because that's what people have liked and tuning them to chat really well. Now what? What do we tune for? Well, programming is pretty given, and then people are like, asking questions and answering questions is also sort of, maybe we can also automate that, and that's what everybody's looking for. The holy grail, without having supervision, how can you do reinforcement learning? We're coming up with more and more clever ways to do supervised.
So what is the trajectory for tests?
Yeah, sure. Okay, for tests, okay.
Used to so we are saying now, on the one hand side, more real life or more actuation, more agentic, in line with meter. We are saying,
but Meta isn't that agentic yet. But I hope it is in the future.
But it shows a path.
I think it is. But
what is the math test called that they can solve 4 out of the 40 questions or whatever?
Yeah, the hardest.
The human last exam.
The last exam. The last test. What is
beautiful?
It? Human last exam.
Yeah. I mean, that is awesome.
What is that? Can someone? I read about it, but could someone summarize it if the listener hasn't heard about it?
But it's supposed to be, super complicated questions that only the top experts in the human world, so to speak, can answer. and it's in different fields. Everything from
It is in different fields, right? Not
Yeah,
only
yeah.
math,
It's
right?
math and physics, biology, computer science, and more. And I think it's partly.
My understanding is it's mostly pure maths stuff, but the point is
Very scientific, in my
there's
opinion.
a difference between how pure maths people do stuff, and if you ask them, everything that we do is arithmetic, plus and minus, and what they're doing is formal system stuff. And a formal system is provable, but you have to be very systematic about it, and you have to make these gigantic analogy leaps that are quite, quote unquote, creative. And for the AI to have solved 4 of them, which these people were like, no, this is going to take forever, is very cool. And we should comment, because you said something about how long ago GPT stuff came out, and I think you made it longer than it is, right? I mean, it's barely been 3 years total from the ChatGPT revolution.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, but human last exam, I think, is fun, and I actually had to look it up here a bit. But GPT-5, I think they scored 25% accuracy now on this one. Gemini 2.5, 22%. Opus 11%. Grok 4 above GPT-5 slightly with no tools. But if you do Grok 4 heavy, heavy was this kind of 4-agent running in parallel. And they also limit to just text-based, because they have apparently multimodal kind of thing where you have to understand images and diagrams and whatnot. But if you ignore them and just have text, Grok 4 scores 50%. That's amazingly high.
I wonder, are these benchmarks open? There's always this risk of being trained on the benchmarks.
Leakage of data.
Yeah.
No, but the point is these questions are sort of not open research questions, but they're so difficult that there's no published solution. It's like Fermat's last theorem. It's just an arbitrary question where, if you were to make a solution to it, there'd be 5 people in the world that could verify, that are experts in modular forms and a couple of other things that are so niche. And that's really awesome.
But it is a good question. I'm not sure because I think there are verifiable results in this one. So somewhere there is, you can test.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So in this case, you can say if it's right or wrong. And
could also be
if it were to have leaked, of course, then you wouldn't never be able to separate, having memorized the results from actually reasoned to the results, right?
And it could also be just that people are talking about the benchmarks. If they are open, then we have a world wide web. So if there is one expert in the world that talks about it on X, then it's already.
But that's fair game, isn't it? Because we're talking about real problems.
It's learned from reading the answer in that case.
But if we try to close the topic on benchmarks, let me close with a provocative question. Should normal people care about benchmarks in relation to how they choose what to use?
If the alternative is anecdotal evidence, I say absolutely they should care about proper scientific, objective benchmarks.
There's some stuff that can't be benchmarked. So I'm going to comment just now on how good Suno and other services have happened just in the past.
Kind of.
It's so good. It can't do as good music as I can, but they're very close. It is shockingly good.
Yeah. Of course, some things are harder to measure than others, but it doesn't, if you were able to measure also a subjective thing like taste in music, it still would be better to have benchmarks than not have it. Right?
There's lots of things you could benchmark, like how hi-fi the sound is and stuff like that. So
but even taste stuff. So you could.
Can I say something to answer your question? I think should normal people care? If you're talking about the average ChatGPT user, it doesn't matter because it's already so good. The normal type of questions that non-experts in a field, if you're not talking about programmers, if you're not talking about mathematicians, like everyday kind of stuff, just to get this work thing done, that would take me half an hour, but I can do it in a couple of seconds with ChatGPT. That kind of stuff.
Why is a feed in LinkedIn filled with people complaining about, they say draw a map of Europe and the name of every country on it, and it spells Russia wrong or something like that. That is all what my wall is filled about. And they're like, you see, so they're still dumb. People say this is PhD level intelligence. Why can't it spell Russia correctly? have we sort of forgotten about the normal user and just sort of skipped ahead to all the cool stuff?
So this is a segue, right? So this is I'm wrapping up the first question, and I want to answer it myself because I have a pragmatic advice.
Okay, but don't go into the future trajectory.
No,
because that's a second topic.
No. So and because I think the segue here is that wrapping up on benchmarks, are they useful? Is my final question, and I have an advice around how to think as a normal user. And then from there we get to where you were hinting at, and then we can get to the trajectory. And the anecdote here is that I take an example from real life in enterprise, and we have a basic question: should we use Power BI or should we use Tableau or whatever fucking SaaS application for something? And we have expert firms, Gartner or whatever, who's done their quadrants, very, very professionally benchmark stuff. And then in real life, if you work in any large enterprise with all the craziness going on, with the tech depth from hell, all the different, sometimes crap data, all the different variations and combinations, it's more than 10 years ago that we said, you know what? We need to do a bake-off. We need to do a prototype. We need to see how it fits in our specific context. And I think you can take that down to any user, consumer. What are you using it for? It's vastly different than what I'm using it for. I'm not a coder. You're a coder, okay? I'm caring for marketing research in this vein. Blah blah blah. I'm using it for designing cool T-shirts. Whatever. So whatever you are caring about, whatever you are doing about, I think it's the time where you kind of narrow it down. There are 3 or 4 or 5. You need to try them out, and then you will feel anecdotally for yourself what you prefer. And I think that is more useful.
And they are very capable, all of them.
They all, in my opinion, is a little bit like you get into these semi-stupid questions. Why we should enterprise architect? We should go there. Just fucking pick one, yeah?
But then you should always pick the cheapest one. Wouldn't that be the argument then?
No, you should pick the one that you like the most.
But if all of them are equally capable, I don't fully buy this argument.
No,
I
think this is a good argument because if you want to let me rephrase it. You should optimize it for your value for you. So if you are planning to do something where you have a lot of API calls, it goes out the door to go a couple of different versions.
That's why my dad uses DeepSeek. I'm serious. I asked him, do you use any AI? And he's like, yeah, I use DeepSeek. It's so smart. It knows everything about the Roman Empire and so on. So the Chinese are they're achieving what they set out to achieve. No, but I mean, you said the cheapest one as a suggestion. DeepSeek comes in and it's good enough.
Yeah, but once again, there's no right or wrong. Then you need to balance that cheapness against what is the downfall here. Why is it cheap? Maybe, yeah. So, but I still maintain you kind of need to understand it from your own perspective, and the only way you're going to get there is by looking at it from your perspective.
And all models are not just models; they have different kind of tweaks. Some have advanced voice mode, etc.
If I were to choose what to pay money on, I would never choose my own anecdotal kind of evidence by looking at the fridge or looking at the car. I would like to have some hard data on saying, this is some kind of test that I can trust that can make me choose. This is why I should put money in something, right? That is still. I'm a scientist at heart, so for me at least, this does make sense.
I agree with that. If you don't have any chance to try it, but
it's hard to try yourself.
But if Elgiganten had a way that we have a setup now that you can have 10 fridges, and we come in, we fix everything for you, and you can have 10 different fridges, and then you pick the one that you liked. Of course, we can't do that with a fridge, but in reality, if there is no barrier for me to try it.
But there is a thing merit connecting what you two are saying here, which is each user has different requirements from it. So if you want to write poetry, then you go to the poetry benchmark. Yeah. And if you want to program, you go to the program benchmark.
I think that's what will be the future. And Grok is really good at mathematical abstract reasoning. If you want that, you should choose that. If you want something that is really good, pleasing from being able to phrase yourself in some language, you should use GPT. If you want to have the best coder, you should use Claude, right?
I tend to think of it as the same way as I think when I'm buying a computer. It's like I'm buying a Mac. That's not because it's the cheapest. It's not maybe
because you don't have any good sense or taste.
That's because
this was the wrong example.
that is
By the way, this is why I want to sit on this table. Oh, there's a Mac there. I want to be on this side.
So there are clearly different preferences in how you make decisions.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Perhaps we should try to move into the more futuristic kind of trajectory. You know, where are we going in some sense? Just to open up a question there. If we take, I listened to François Chollet recently, like he made some kind of statement.
Who is he? Use for the listener.
Yeah, he's the one that created the ArcAGI framework for testing AGI in a super hard way and trying to really find questions that humans are good at that AI is really bad at today. And he's been actually a deep learning skeptic for a long time. He's a Google engineer as well. He also wrote a paper on intelligence, how to measure intelligence properly, which I really like. He wrote the Keras framework.
He's famous for Keras, but he's never actually done any super research in anything. But you know,
but he's a famous person. But there are, he's actually been a skeptic for a long time, especially in deep learning, which is interesting. And he's also been a skeptic that we ever reach AGI. And now he actually changed his mind and said, in last year, I changed saying that I think AGI will be reachable in 5 years, which is very surprising for him.
Really
nice statement.
That's a powerful walk back from we will never reach AGI to 5 years.
We have to be fair here, though. All the people that are walking back and they're like, you know what, I changed my mind. No, you didn't. You got smashed by the sledgehammer of evidence. But okay.
Yes, agreed.
I loved how you pictured that in my head.
He had to retract. It's like the people on ML Street Talk. They are forced to agree that deep learning is actually useful.
When will Jan de Koon walk back on LLMs?
No, never.
Never. That was too deep.
Yeah.
That was like a black hole.
Okay, let me just try to go back to the topic of trajectory, and I just want to say something that François Chollet said in this talk, and that was that, which is something I agree on, is that the LLMs in the past, at least before 01, 03, etc., is mainly reasoning by finding templates of reasoning. So it's memorizing templates, how reasoning has been done in the past for similar tasks. And then it's applying that template to do apparent reasoning, which is very shallow. It's still reasoning, but it's very shallow, and it simply finds a template that's similar to the problem you're trying to solve. And that's why the ArcAGI that he's designing is not working, because there are no similar kind of reasoning templates out there. Now he said that, I've seen a change. I've seen actually that it can adapt. I've seen that without having to retrain the model, it can actually at test time or at inference time be able to adapt to a new type of problem it never seen before. That's why he's now saying there is actually fluid intelligence in these kind of AI models, and that's why he reduced significantly the time scale for AGI. Yeah. And I think that's really a good statement, and I actually do agree with that. And people are a bit confused when they say an AI model can reason, but it's shallow reasoning. But it's getting better. Now the question then, of course, I still like the OpenAI kind of AGI pyramid with the 5 levels. Me too. With the lowest one being conversational, let's call it, or knowledge management, as I call it, and then reasoning, and then autonomous, being increasingly autonomous. Yeah, autonomous in taking actions, but we can go into that. And then you have the innovation and organizational, and humans should be focusing on the top 2 more and more in coming years, right? Is that a trajectory? Would you agree that this is a good future trajectory to consider? That this is what we will see? AI is really good at the bottom layer today, better than humans, I would argue, much better. And just to motivate that, I can tell that you can put like 10 prompts in Gemini in 1 million token window today. You can read it in seconds and have more or less perfect recall from all these 10 books in seconds. No human could ever do that. Yes. So in terms of memory management, it's
pyramid, the
bottom layer.
Maslow pyramid here.
yeah. Oh, that's another pyramid. But
someone did
it's improving all the time. So reasoning is getting better and better. But you shouldn't be fooled. Reasoning is still worse than humans.
Are we allowed to get into philosophy here yet?
Very much.
I mean,
now is the time.
I believe that we have inherited a lot of terminology, ideas, and other stuff from neurobiology and from philosophy to our disadvantage. And the reason is a lot of those things are from our human hobby of looking at something complicated and cataloging it. Whereas in reality, what we see are complicated emergent phenomena that come from very simple rules. And if we know those simple rules, they tend to generalize well. And now what we've learned with machine learning is precisely that we can have these general purpose architectures that learn anything. And then you're like, well, I wanted to learn this one thing, so I'll make the architecture just a little bit more specific to it. But general purpose rules are the thing. And so if we tie to Francois' idea here, that there's different kinds of thinking. There's fluid thinking, there's this kind of thinking, or there's fast and slow thinking. It's not clear that there's any physics explanation for that there is such a thing. We have identified it as such, but the emergent or the source principles that are necessary for thinking, it's not clear that you need to have two separate systems or anything like that. And so he's surprised that, it does generalize. Yes, because it's the same system that does the fast and the slow system that you're looking at from above. But it's irrelevant whether, you can identify.
But great comment. If I may just comment on that, I would say that it is two different systems. And if we take the human brain, and we know we have long-term memory, we have short-term memory, and we have some kind of working memory, at least three different ways that the human brain works. And in the working memory, you can perhaps, think about two things or three things at the same time, and you lose it in minutes. Short-term, it's a bit longer. Long-term, it's very hard to influence, but it lasts a lifetime, more or less. Now, if you take an LLM of today, you have the parameters, which are trained offline in pre-training mode, and that's the long-term, of course. It's very hard to change. And then if you take the prompt that you have, potentially that's the working memory that is lost in minutes or something. But we're really lacking the middle part, the memory part. We're starting to see it a bit. Since ChatGPT has the memory feature, even in cursor, when you write it, it actually adds stuff to its own memory.
But there are some research architectures that are experimenting with ways of achieving that, right?
Yeah. There's an old one from 2018-ish, or even earlier, the I forgot the name now, but there's been attempts in trying to save memory.
Mistral has, what is it called? There's the Mamba architecture and a couple of other ones where they're playing with. I'm just saying that people are trying to do with recursive layers and that kind of thing.
Are you on two different sides of the argument, or is it nuances? Because you're saying there's only one system, or trying to think about this philosophy, and you're coming in. No, there are many systems, but at the one hand side, it's also, it's one architecture and it's different angles now of what you need to have in that architecture. Even the brain is one brain, or you can understand the brain as several modules.
The brain is certainly different modules in it, right?
Yeah, but it depends on where you define the system. The brain is one brain, but the one brain is constructed of several.
It's also all a matter of what kind of abstraction level you're putting yourself on. But you can say the whole world of humans is one organism as well.
But the logic here is the brain one architecture.
The brain is made to be the brain is made to be power efficient. So what we could potentially have is a single feed forward, fully connected neural network doing everything. But that we can't build that one that emulates the brain.
But we can easily say that the human brain can be broken down into different pieces, and we can see they have different functionality. So it's easy to see that. But if you take the GPT type of LLM, which is the decoder part of a transformer, you can see it's not possible to break down in that sense. It's the same type of blocks just being repeated.
Yeah.
So in that sense, that's one component that is one part that's very similar, right? With a similar kind of functionality. I would argue that we will see more and more of these components. We already see it today with the chain of thought is one thing, but more that you have a scaffolding, as people call it. I hate that term, scaffolding. But anyway, they have scaffolding around the LLM to make it actually do reasoning in different ways and take actions in different steps and become more agentic.
But that should be done in latent space, no?
Yes,
Yes.
of course.
But
Now we're there.
now we're there.
Now we're closing the loop. But would you agree that we will see this kind of more complicated architecture in the future? Or
Yeah, for sure. I think even to the point of Jan LeCun, the LLM route is wrong or right or wrong. I don't think it's about that. I think it's about we've come quite far on one part of one module of the architecture, but the diminishing returns to continue here versus starting adding the other modules or expanding the architecture to the latent space or whatever. That's where we're going to go. And this is very interesting because then, of course, what are we going to measure? What are we going to look at? What are we defining on? So if we have benchmarks that is only looking at one part of the architecture, is that really useful? Or we're only seeing diminishing returns here. Now we need to construct benchmarks and we need to understand the evolution of GPT. Doesn't need to go further down that route. It needs to go somewhere else.
We're already seeing small signs of that, where there was a neat paper that came out, I think maybe before the summer really, that analyzed transformers in vision, and they found that the filters that it was designing were very different than biological ones. So whereas we've found a lot of success in adapting convolutions for image recognition, transformers have found other architectures or setups that we don't see in biology that are performing very well or sometimes better. And so that is just like on the architecture substrate, we're seeing reasons where it's maybe there's another path that's not very human-like. I think what Jan is going to say in the future is, yes, but this thing you have is not an LLM, but it is.
of course,
I was right. But wait.
And he would be right. Okay,
sorry. But then we come to the next topic. How far should we keep staring at only the LLM, and when do we need to start looking at the architecture of whatever, the AI compound system, like
There's two big driving
Berkeley
forces.
AI research.
I'd like to hear Jesper's thoughts about this, because I know you're very much into agent mode as well and things like that. And I must say, the term scaffolding seems to be increasing in popularity a lot. And I would like to hear what you think, for one, it means. If it means something that we are adding some kind of logic around it or some kind of functionality around it that is either heuristic, human-coded, or even some learned behavior that can be. But what do you think about,
Yeah, I'm going back and forth with this. It's obvious that the scaffolding camp is gaining a lot of traction right now. And I alluded to the use of Claude Code and the types of scaffolding I see there, which is very good. But then I listened to a podcast with the inventor of Claude Code, where he was specifically asked by the interviewer of what he thinks about scaffolding in the future, and like how much these memory type structures and etc. And he sees it as it's all gonna. He said that it changed when he started working at Anthropic. So he used to be in the scaffolding camp, but when he started at Anthropic, he was like, no, everything is going to be in the model. Ooh. So
Nice.
I'm now leaning towards that, and I think to support that argument, I had a discussion with I think Claude or some AI in the weekend specifically about this, because it's something that I'm thinking about a lot, and I got to the conclusion that if I pushed Claude to use the bitter lesson, like what is it that scales? We're pouring all this money into the LLMs, and we know that we have this trajectory, and as long as everything continues to scale, as long as we get predictable gains by putting more money into the system, then we will just continue to do that. And there is no fundamental bottleneck to the system. It's just scaling the context size and scaling parameters, and most importantly, the data. We need to solve the data problem.
So do you truly think that we can reach AGI by just scaling up a GPT kind of style transformer block?
I think what will happen is that we will get to a point where the economic gains of the system, it's all about money, because it's a major investment that we're making, as long as we continue to put in money and we get something out of it, because it's so predictable, the rewards that we're getting. I think that we will get to a point where we can do economically viable work, and to allude again to the steps of that you mentioned from OpenAI, the levels. We're now at agentic, and we're sniffing on innovation. We're
sniffing at agentic.
We're definitely at agentic.
I would say we're sniffing at agentic.
I'm with you there.
Yeah.
It's still,
we haven't solved it.
No, we haven't solved it, but that's the level that we're at. We're working on that.
Working at reasoning as well. And the only thing we solved, I would say, is the bottom one.
Please let me continue. So what I wanted to say is, for coding, we're at the level where we're truly agentic. That is.
It can improve still, but we
have solved enormous challenges. If you look at the pace of innovation in agentic coding in a year, it's like
amazing.
Miles.
But it will continue in coming year, right? Even for coding.
Definitely so.
Yeah. So we have more to improve.
Definitely so. So we still have a ways to go. But what I wanted to say is, after agentic, we're already starting to sniff onto innovations.
Maybe.
So, for example, Alpha Evolve, I think it's called, this system that can improve on known algorithms, which Google DeepMind released.
Yeah.
So once we get those reinforcement systems into play, then we will have something that can iteratively
Can I just try to put another spin on that you're just saying, and potentially disagree? There is this kind of idea you can simply scale things, and in theory, of course, a transformer could map any kind of problem and function that you can think of. Yes. But just as well, you can say there is a mathematically proved theorem called universal approximation theorem that says that even a single hidden layer neural network can map and work with any function whatsoever. It may be infinitely wide, but it can. But it's just extremely inefficient to train. Extremely. You would never. That's why we have the convolutional networks, the recurrent networks, the deep learning kind of system that we have. Yes. And transformers. So transformers made it extremely more efficient. I think that's the premier reason transformers were so successful, is because the efficiency, not really in the power of what they can, model, is really the efficiency. I would argue that the transformer did improve a lot, but it's not an efficient way to continue to improve in terms of agentic abilities.
You know what the transformer is? It is offloading various parts of doing stuff to machine learning. So it not only does it machine learn the sensitivity to the variables, it machine learns the features, it machine learns more and higher up that
It's a second order statistics that no one has had.
So the more we can figure out how to offload our sort of problem solving stuff to as a machine learning optimization.
It's generalizing convolutional networks and recurrent networks at once.
Yes,
right? But still, I would say that just as it improved in efficiency by going from a single feed-forward network to a recurrent or a convolutional or a transformer network, there is still potentially improved efficiency gain you can get.
Definitely.
That's why
I'm
I don't
not
think
arguing against that.
Well, you did.
No, I'm not. I'm saying this is a paradigm that seems to work, and as long as it does, I think that's what will happen. We will continue to do it, and then I agree. But let me finish. I agree that it's still not known how far the transformer will scale. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying we will continue as long as it scales.
But let me quote Mr. Sabes a bit here, and he says, he was asked a similar kind of question. How much can we scale by this adding more data and more parameters to a model and more compute to it? And then he said, of course, we will see improvements if we scale more data, more compute, and more parameters. But you can also compare it to algorithmic improvements. And he said in history, and he said in the future, algorithmic improvements is 10x more than scaling in terms of data, compute, or parameters. And I certainly agree with that. So I think if we find new architectures, new algorithmic improvements that improve the way that we can handle not only long-term memory, which transformers are really good at today, but also improve our working memory and short-term memory, that will be more valuable than just scaling data and parameters and compute.
Let me summarize.
And just a single example, neuromorphic computing.
I was going to go there.
I knew.
Okay, because this is not an either or.
First, well, partly
no, it isn't, because first it's an observation. As long as it works, people are going to keep pouring money on it.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And so don't expect this to stop. If we hit the ceiling, that's another topic, but the ceiling is not there. So don't expect anything to change. Don't expect
the ceiling is there in terms of energy, I would say.
The energy is the ceiling. Now we're getting to a ceiling, and then you're adding to, okay, so we know if we want to understand and predict the future, there is one trajectory here. This is a movement here. There's a train going. It's not going to stop. However, at the same time, we all know through history of invention that we will have algorithmic leaps.
Yeah.
The interesting part now, where in the stack will these leaps happen? So if we take the example now, the trajectory is going here, but so what part of the architecture are we thinking coming first? Maybe neuromorphic computing changes the whole fucking game on the lowest level, and then basically we can continue on the upside with no difference, or the algorithmic change is higher up in the abstraction, in the latent space. So we don't know, right? But we know it's going to happen by innovation.
And I think we're bound today by both compute and energy. So we need algorithmic improvement, I would say,
on all levels. Eventually, it's going to be a bobottleneck topic.
Let me go back to the meter case. As long as it continues to scale, if we continue on this path, then at December 2027, we will be able to do things with the LLM that would take a human 1 week to do.
But it would assume that we can scale in terms of compute and energy.
That we can.
We can, not from energy point of view, no.
Yes, we can. That's the...
Where do you find that energy?
That is what I found from, I think it's called Our World in Data. They estimate until 2030 we can continue to scale.
But we're only getting like a gigawatt data center.
Please let me continue. So up until 2030, according to the best source I've found, we will be able to scale the current paradigm. So that's why I'm thinking up until 2030, we will continue to pour in money as long as we don't hit any fundamental bottleneck.
I think there's a good question to ask here, which is one thing that has been particular about AI development for the past 10 years, let's say, has been that it's been primarily driven by industrial research, right? Not academic research. The people that have access to the hardware and companies and so on. Okay, and so you have on the one hand all the scientists that are interested in research questions, neuromorphic computing, architecture design and so on. And then you have the selective pressures, let's say, or the business pressures of what pays the bills. And I'm thinking about, is it Recall in Windows that lets you rewind backwards, Microsoft, sort of the consumer or maybe business applications that are, this is where the money comes from. Is that pressure going to be higher than the interest from the scientists in sort of which direction we want these things to go in? So, for example, I don't think we've come to the energy quota of music generation models. And what if that pays the bills for everything more than coder model? It doesn't, but you get what I'm saying? Like, I wonder if the money for quite a while can push us forward in directions that fill out the gaps while researchers work on more fundamental problems.
And when we get to the level when the AI can do the research.
But ideally.
All right, Chris. So let me, a little bit philosophically, a little bit like a rant, end this trajectory discussion with, this is all bullshit. And it's very simple. We had this conversation, the first, second, third, fourth industrial revolution. Okay, and if you look at the data now, technically in what the capabilities are, what we are talking about here is on the bleeding edge. The fourth industrial or the fifth or the sixth industrial revolution technically has already happened, but our inabilities as organizations, societies to flip that into operational value is the real bottleneck. So how much should we really talk about this stuff and then basically feed the Silicon Valley machine? And when should we flip this whole conversation to, What do we need to do with agentic and all that to make it work? And then maybe that's an organizational topic, maybe that's leadership topics. So you used to take us back to earth a little bit.
Yeah.
I can feel the AGI. That's all I'm going to say.
No, but I think it's a good point. And we can certainly see the big race between the big tech giants and also the countries. Of course, China and USA is really racing hard here.
Just one fun stat.
Yeah.
People think that China and the US are on par with each other, but at least for right now, in terms of compute power, US dwarfs them at 10x right now.
But
just an interesting stat.
Found really innovative ways in DeepSeek and other models to still circumvent that, right?
I'm just arguing, which race should we be in? Should we be in this tech race, or should we be in the adoption race?
But I think, what we have spoken a bit about before, Henrik, is also kind of, the top tech giants kind of race versus what normal companies and people actually make use of.
Societies and
how you find value from it.
Yeah.
And there is a race, and you can see the motivation for it, because you can think of, the innovators or the first mover advantage potentially for someone getting AGI, which can then lead to some kind of explosion potentially. I don't think so, but still. But you can understand that countries are fighting because it will have huge impact on their economy and their national security.
Geopolitics, all the layers.
So it's really high stakes, and really need to fight on this kind of super, super expensive kind of solutions that no ever normal company or person would ever use. But still, they will try to achieve it. Right? And also from a tech company point of view, they also want to win, because if they are the winner in whatever kind of competition, they will get the users. So they will also try to win it. But I don't think that's where the value comes.
Oh,
right. And I think that's a really good point. So if we can let the X number of countries and companies fight for it, then we can try to scoop in where the value really is.
And I think we've been trying to push this a lot, me and Anders, even to the point when you get to this arbitrary conversation, should we build our own cloud in Europe or whatever? And yes, we should, but how is more interesting, right? Should you fine tune something else, or do you need to build it from scratch? Should you build your own LLM? Blah 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 blah, right? And here I think there's a much more important conversation to be had, which then, this is why I'm coming back to AI compound systems, because all of what we're talking about in theory, how it will work, this is the game for the Groks and for the OpenAIs. But for normal people, it's already a done deal. We should all try to build AI compound systems. We should simplify and make use of the simplest model. We should practically understand where we need to use the LLM and maybe even minimize it because it's tricky, and build systems. This is my argument.
You've been in the consumer and business space with the application of this technology. Is your impression that there is a sense of urgency? And the reason I asked that question, just to sort of give you context, is my impression is that Europe is not missing resources, is not missing talent. It's missing a sense of urgency from, a threat to their right or to their existence, basically. Yes. If the problem was that we needed GPUs, Zenzact would have level 4 self-driving right now, and all the other GPU, we have resources and we have talent. We just don't have that killer instinct that's necessary to get stuff done.
Yeah, maybe we don't see the sense of urgency in the AI train. I think we're starting to see it, but we're not.
But I think I don't think Europe or Sweden or most companies should ever get into the AI race. I think they can, have a big benefit of not taking that kind of fight. I think we can actually gain so much value for a company, for society, for people, if we simply try to focus on the value instead.
You're only saying that because we can't take
a
fight. If we were to fight there, we would lose.
But now
but still, it's not that we have to be sad about it. I think actually we can be positive about it, right?
Okay, Anders was now using, or in his head, having AI race for him meant the ultimate bleeding edge AI race.
Frontier race.
What we need to do, we need to have urgency and feel the killer instinct about fundamental innovation on the productivity frontier.
And the value
and
creation.
What the fuck that could be if it's process, digital, AI, who gives a shit?
Let them invest their hundreds of millions.
Because if we recalibrate, then we can better understand, do we really need our own cloud, or do we need something in some ways? Do we really need our own LLM, or do we need something?
The one that will be best in finding true value for a company or for a society or for a country, they will win in the end, I would say. But Still, of course, you can see that
but
the
this
frontier
is
will win in
this
some
is now
sense.
why the AI Commission's report is problematic. Because, if you look at who is in the construct of this, it's on the one hand side some politicians, on some CEOs, and a huge bunch of researchers who really want to compete in the AI race. In terms of AI research in Sweden, now we need to have more researchers. Fuck no, we need more engineers. We need AI engineers.
Yes.
We need people who can build AI products. And there is not a single paragraph on engineering in the whole report.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't, we need to educate users, consumers. Fuck that. Yeah. We need to have engineers in terms of.
I'm starting to be more positive, at least for the close vicinity for Stockholm. I feel like we have our lovable in Sweden.
Yeah, we have a couple.
I think that could be a way for us to win in our space, the AI race, to build those products that people will use. There is, of course, the political risk of, let's say that somebody wants to shut down all the American models for EU. Then we.
I'm sorry, I have to break for a toilet break, but I'll be right back. Sorry, I'm trying to. But okay, I'll be right back.
Are we trying to say that engineering is easier than research?
No, that's not what I'm necessarily saying. I'm saying that we don't maybe have the resources.
I think that my point is I think we do.
Yeah, you might be right. So I misinterpreted your question. I thought when you said are we doing enough, I meant on like an organizational level, on a company level.
This is where I got to.
But of course I don't see, and I'm happy to be proven wrong, that we have the economical resources to build an OpenAI in Europe.
No, maybe, but I mean, let's for the sake of argument say that some organizations might have enough to get close. We've seen some. What are they called? Mistral in France. Some companies in South Korea, Chinese companies managed to do a lot with very little, because they have their ninja team of super hackers.
Exactly.
And then we're like, okay, we don't have the ninja team of super hacker researchers, but we have the engineers.
Yes.
And so my question then again, rephrased, is, do we really believe that engineering is any easier?
No.
And then we're like, well, we have some good companies. And it's like, yeah, but it's like we have some customers in Europe and we have 10,000 customers, not 400 million customers.
No, but this is, we had Sverker Jansson here, who is at RISE, heading up the data science or AI center of excellence in RISE. He said it so well. So what happens with Silicon Valley is that they are churning out engineers who has an understanding for what great looks like, for what it should look like. They come from the Googles and then they do their stint there, and then they start their next startup, and it just grows a critical mass of engineers that is not only sort of researcher, but applying almost research to solve real problems. And what is interesting, I love with the Lovable example, this is the difference in 2025 in Sweden compared to when we were with Spotify in 2012. We are now seeing the second generation of AI startups with great engineers, educated at Spotify or Klarna or whatever. And now we get in, so this is the first time where you get any resemblance of the Silicon Valley phenomena with engineers being churned out. This is vastly different to churn out high stakes engineers compared to churn out researchers. And we are asking for more researchers in academia or whatever, but we need to churn out high stakes engineers. Yes. However, we can do that with more Lovables or with actually incubated stuff happening in Volvo, whatever. I don't care. That's where it happens. And then it grows from there, because you get that engineering culture in, and you kind of understand, well, it's not only about the model, we need to build a system, and the system has 6 risk vectors. It's the integration, blah, blah, blah. And then we're getting to real stuff, I think.
Of course, it's super cool with Lovable and unicorns being developed in Sweden and Europe. But I think what I would be really excited about is if the average company, an average person, start to gain value from AI. That is what I hope we would spend investments in. And I think that's actually a very positive thing. That means that we have a reasonable path. It's something that we can do in Sweden and Europe. And that would mean that we are, instead of creating this kind of extreme classes of companies and people as they do in US, which is the average company in US, I would say, is far below the average company in Sweden. But the top one is far above, so much bigger and bigger economy than most countries.
But what you said,
I think the point is, if we then simply say, let them fight it out, let us instead find value that really benefit most of the companies and most of the people, that would be an amazing future.
But isn't that then a very, very interesting topic, how you need to frame and really articulate more specifically the focus within an AI Commission report or within a digital strategy?
Yes.
Because if you look at it right now, it doesn't make those choices.
No.
And that's the problem to me, because because if we're not making those choices, we're gonna shoot our money off with a shotgun for bullshit.
If we try to build another frontier model, we're going to lose that money in seconds. Right?
So, but because what you're saying now is like we're gonna aim, and really, it's only articulating we're gonna be the best in the world of using AI. We said somewhere, but what does that mean? Does it mean that we will have to take elements in AI? No, it means we need to be best in the world to build AI compound systems in a safe and smooth way.
We don't make fun of the Prime Minister when he uses AI to source data.
That's a good one.
What do you think about that?
That even came in the sofa of TV4. I couldn't believe it.
Wouldn't it be worse if he had said AI? What's that?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes. No, I mean it's okay.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
I mean, he's an adult. He's hopefully a well-educated adult. Yeah. He knows what happens if he uses ChatGPT or any system. So I'm trusting that he makes his own judgments.
Yeah, but the question was not about how he uses it, but it was really even more dumb that he's using it.
Yeah. That's what it was.
That is the ultimate idiot.
Yeah, it was just like
it wasn't.
Should he be allowed to use AI?
No, so I commented on this. Say like, look, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard.
You commented on LinkedIn.
I commented on LinkedIn. But if someone had said how he uses it, then it would have been a fruitful conversation. But if he should use it,
yes,
that's stupid.
I would never trust a person or a company that doesn't use AI. I mean, that's the core point, right?
Yeah. It's the core point. But then, of course, he needs to know what the fuck he's doing. That's a good debate. Yeah. How he's using it. That's
you could also argue that you shouldn't be using mobile phones or
the internet.
Why don't we just live in a cave? It would be so much easier.
My impression is that budgets for AI in the past summer and right before have loosened up magically, really, really fast.
In fact,
whereas
enterprises?
And companies and everywhere. Last fall, the wallets were really, really closed, and now hospitals, public sector, and companies, all of a sudden they're like...
What are you basing this on?
Just my anecdotal sort of impression of
more people calling Robert.
Something like that, yeah.
I wish it were true, but I wish I'd see some numbers on that. That would be nice.
Are we wrapping this up, Anders?
Yes.
How do we wrap it up?
Yeah, how do we wrap it up? I think we already wrapped it up.
GPT-6 when?
I wrapped it up with it's all bullshit.
Okay, but let me try to say, okay, who will...
11.
What?
With the promo for season 11, 11th of September.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so this was an improvised podcast. We weren't planning to do this. We just thought, why not, given all the discussions about GPT-5, and why not simply having fun with some friends talking about AI. But we're starting the proper AIAW podcast on September 11th. So look up for that, and we're going to continue, and we'll have some awesome guests. I'm sure we're going to focus a lot on the OpenAI stairs or the pyramid, going more agentic more and more time and time again.
But let's make a promise to find also the adoption angle and what we are talking about. Let's really find the engineering angle and making it practical.
That would be amazing if we can.
But we already have some really amazing guests.
Yes, we have.
So very good.
Cool. But perhaps then let me try a question to all of you. One question. Okay. 2 questions. One, who will be the winner in the frontier AI race?
Are you talking about like the bet, like who's gonna have the best AI by the end of this year?
No, in 5 years.
In 5? Like we're gonna have robots in 5 years. But okay.
You can take 1 year if you want, but I was thinking 5 years. Secondly, who will be the biggest value finder for AI? Okay, what I mean with that is
society.
Yes.
Who will impact positively society best?
Yeah, yes. Which country, basically?
Country or LLM?
No. Which country will find? I'm making it up as I think it. But which country or continent? If we take like a US, Europe, and China and Asia, Russia, whatever, which one will be the best off in terms of happiness and societal benefits?
From AI.
From AI.
Okay, I'm ready with my prediction. And
go.
I don't have a lot to base it on, but only one small thing. I think XAI is going to do very good.
Yes.
And the reason is I always think that people that are not afraid to embarrass themselves have a greater chance of doing revolutionary stuff. And we know that they're very, Elon and everybody is just, not afraid. And I think that is good. Secondly, who's going to benefit the most? I think it's like a tide that's going to lift everyone, meaning the people at the bottom are going to be the most well off. They're going to understand the law better. They're going to have knowledge at their fingertips. They're not going to be fooled by as much. They're going to be able to get information. I was talking to a guy yesterday that has friends in Africa, and he was saying that now that everybody has a spokesperson with them in their phone, that's going to be very powerful. So
it can be the equalizer in some way.
Yeah, I hope that it's like a democratic force.
Yeah, good. And the winner of the AI frontier race,
XAI.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a bold prediction.
Yeah, I'll be the dark horse.
No.
Yeah, so my money would be on Google. They have the most resources, and they've made good progress recently. They also have a breadth of things, which is a good sort of hedge. I like the Genie type of models, the world building models. So my money is on Google just from sheer resources in compute and in money. They also have talent, but they all have. And I can't improve on your answer on the lifting all boats. I think that's a very well made observation. I think I think the ones that will be relatively speaking, the ones that have the least will gain the most. That sounds like a good.
Good. That's a good outcome,
hope.
right?
Yeah.
Henrik, do you have any thoughts? Who will be the frontier winner and value winner potentially?
Salesforce.
No, but that's such a good one. Just to be interesting, I will go with an open source story on this. I think there comes a point, and it's a little bit down to the whole B2C versus B2B, where we put the effort. We will get to a point where the costs of doing some of these proprietary models will be too high. So there will be a shift to build models in a way where the fundamental model is open source underneath, much more, magnitude more.
Frontier models would be open source?
No, and so who will win the AI race? How do you define that? If I'm
the frontier race,
frontier. Okay, so I was not thinking. Okay, I answered the question wrong. I'm not answering it as a frontier race, but as a market penetration race. Okay. So I think there is a dark horse here in open source, but I was actually not answering the right question. I was asking market penetration. That I think on a B2B scale, there needs to be some rethinking here. Frontier race was the real question. Sorry.
It's two questions. One was the frontier. The second one was basically value race.
So the value race in terms of technology, I think open source, and you can make your pick, maybe Llama then, or something like that. The Jan LeCun gang.
That's interesting. After Zuckerberg poached all the researchers for billions of dollars.
Yeah, he has paid for the talent. Let's see if we can get something out of it. And he has the Jan LeCun. When they do the algorithmic leap.
Yes.
When do they do that? So let's see, right? I'm betting on that. Just maybe better odds on that one if I'm going to put money on it. When it comes to society, the dark horse here is Europe, because in my opinion, if you have a balanced understanding for democracy, risk and regulation and stuff like that, and if you can harness that in the good way, you can build more sustainable innovation. And maybe what you're losing on in the short game, you're building each block in the right way so you can step on it and it doesn't fold underneath you. But that's such a long shot, because it ignores all the problems of Europe. But it also highlights that, you know what, there is a race in terms of value for society that I don't think you can do unchecked. And I don't think you can, and you can then frame it. It's really fucking hard to live on a continent with hundreds of countries almost, and to make that work. And maybe that can play to our benefit if we can sort of figure that out in this space. But that's, I don't know, it's almost visual thinking maybe, I don't know. But it's a fun, it's just an angle.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
and you?
Okay.
Yeah, you thought you were going to get out of it?
Frontier, I must agree with Robert, and I think, the speed always wins, and there is no one faster than Elon and his Tesla companies and SpaceX and Neuralink and whatnot. I think that's hard. Also because they have the whole stack. They have the hardware, they have the software, they have the data, which is like at least 10x, if not 100x more than any other companies have to build this. They have the robots, they have the humanoids, which is going to be the trillion type of market.
It's going to feed each other from all angles. Okay,
so, and they're thinking the full stack here. And they have something working in all of the levels there that no one else have. I think it's, just if Elon can stay the F out of the politics, then perhaps that they will actually win in the end. I think. When it comes to value for society, I'm really worried about the geopolitical trend or direction we're seeing right now. I think it's super dangerous if we abuse the current techniques for that kind of purpose. My biggest scare is that we will not be able to manage that before we have AGI. I will actually be more happy when we have AGI, because then we can have AI supervising other AIs, but we don't have it today. And then we have to have humans to do that, and that is going to be really, really hard. So then if some human assisted by AI for warfare, for whatever, it's going to be super, super dangerous. So I'm hoping that we will come over these kind of coming 5-ish plus years without something really bad happens. And if that happens, if we come above this time, this period, I think it's going to be beautiful.
But this is a political answer. The point was, which continent or which do you think is coming out on top or finding value? And you were talking about lifting the game. That means Africa or some people, all of a sudden we see shifts in balance.
Yeah. I think actually Sweden and Europe has a good chance here. And because we were to do it properly, we don't need to win the frontier race. We can still win the value race. And if we do that properly, it can be a really beautiful society. We've done it in the past. I think we can do it in the future. We just need to stay alive until we can do it.
But a friend of mine who is from another culture, who lives in Sweden, he said something, why we will win in the innovation game in such a way when this works, is that what is our sort of culture of consensus and the way we are making decisions. In some ways, we have a better understanding for how to distribute agency out in an organization, exactly. And therefore we will be in a much closer to our cultural values to make this work. Whereas you have societies which are extremely hierarchical. The tricky one of distributing agency that we now want to give to agent has not at all been solved.
We've been really good in distributing wealth in the past. And if we continue on that, which US and China has not been, then we can have a good future as well, I think.
Man, Europe has been coattailing on the US for 70, 80
We should
years.
stop doing that. We should stop doing that.
Yes, no more medicine, no more technology. No, we just get rid of Windows and Apple and everything. I think we can have one last question,
Okay.
which is utopian or dystopian?
Oh, okay. The standard question. Okay.
How many are utopian about AI? Meaning not we're going to be in a utopia, but everything is going to be much better.
If I start, I can say what I said again. If we just manage to survive until we have AI that can supervise other AIs, then I'm glad. I'm really scared about the short-term future, meaning coming 5-10 years. If we can just survive over those, I think it will be a super beautiful future for humans.
I think it's going to be a rocky road towards a utopia, but I hope that we will get there. I think the challenges are the inequalities in those that know AI and those that don't. That's a big challenge to solve. And I think there's going to be sometime, just as the Industrial Revolution, when we have to adapt as a society, and there will be those that are quicker and there will be those that are slower. But eventually, I think we're going to be fine. We've managed to survive many different shifts before. And if we survive, then I think it's going to be more on the utopia side.
If you take the long macro historic view on this, empires come and go, and it's fucking shit and crazy. But if you look at the fundamental society and how we live now versus 1,000 years ago, it all goes like this. It goes up in the end. But with the rocky road, when the rocky road might even be a world war. So it's all about scale in terms of temporal scale here. But ultimately, I think it's utopian in comparison to where we are. What I think is the main problem beyond this sort of before we reach AGI. This is one argument. The other argument is the AI divide, the distribution of not wealth, but also know-how now, which goes. It's going to be a distribution of power and know-how and wealth in one and the same go connected to AI, and how we solve that means also that there is a very obvious chance that in the parallel world we have both expanded heavily in utopia, but at the same time have a worse dystopian places other parts of the world. So is the net effect then utopian or dystopian? So someone said it really well on the pod. Why would we not have both in different parts of the world at the same time? That's how it's always been.
That's what the movies are like, right? You have the people living on top, and then the people living underneath.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Cool.
Hope
we live to see it. And with that, that was a horrible ending. Sorry for that. Okay, well, with that, thank you so much, Robert, Jesper, Henrik, and let's continue the after work with some more off-camera discussions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.